jacket off now for STUDMUFFINS. It's all business. He is now at his win or go home, right? So he needs to figure out what he's going to do versus Elite. He's been on that winner's side of the bracket, but the pressure is on now. You cannot take your foot off the gas. You need to continue your momentum forward.
Yes, and STUDMUFFINS looking to get his own regional championship t-shirt like the one he is staring down right now on the stage from Elite. We have the Galarian Moltres versus the Ariados, and we actually see Elite stay in this matchup.
Yeah, no, this is really tough for Elite. You do have the benefit of Lunge, which will start debuffing the attack of your opponent here in the Galarian Moltres, but your Poison Stings do less than the Sucker Punches, and you're going to be taking super effective damage, whether it's the Ancient Power or the Brave Bird. Let's see what Elite wants to do here. Does he want to invest a Protect Shield? Does he maybe want to try and call an Ancient Power? Use the first Protect Shield.
Yes, a first Protect Shield comes up, and then we see you're going to have to go for the lunges, perhaps trying to reduce the damage, but STUDMUFFINS makes a catch. But that's kind of unfortunate to catch a lunge because you're starting off your matchup. You're now stuck in this matchup as the Dunsparce, and your attack is already one stage debuff.
Yeah, there's two elements to this because not only now are you debuffed in this matchup, which is against Shadow Kanto Marowak, an unfavorable matchup, but it means also that your Galarian Moltres is going to get realigned eventually versus that Azumarill, which is one of its biggest threats.
Yeah, so curious catch there on the Dunsparce, but going for to try to get at least some neutral damage. Again, this is one stage attack debuff, so the Shadow Kanto Marowak should be able to tank this quite comfortably.
Yeah, even without an attack debuff, actually Shadow Kanto Marowak can withstand 2 drill runs. But look at this farm down here. Elite has 100 energy ready to throw into that Shadow Kanto Marowak, and Shadow Kanto Marowak unable to get the Sucker Punch through, did not have any charge attacks available that STUDMUFFINS could click on, so we're gonna have to see the Protect Shield now. Let's see. Actually, yeah, had the Ancient Power ready to go. Would not have been enough to knock out. Probably is going to go for a full farm down.
Yeah, just Elite being able to garner so much energy off of that Dunsparce was pivotal. Now can come in with the Ariados. The Ariados is a bug. The Galarian Moltres is a bird, but this is a bug's day today, getting to knock out that Galarian Moltres. STUDMUFFINS no shield Shadow for Alligator is rough. Typically, 2 shield for Alligator is the strategy.
Yeah, Elite plays from Elite there. He was able to throw 3 consecutive charge attacks. Rock Slide, and then finally the lunge. All 3 of those would have been able to knock out should they got unshielded, and yeah, able to strip away 2 Protect Shields and get the knockout there. All things going the way of Elite currently.
Yes, I really think it was pivotal that STUDMUFFINS chose to swap in that Dunsparce to make the catch of the lunge. I think maintaining alignment and sticking with the Galarian Moltres in the Ariados matchup could have changed the outcome of this match pretty drastically.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to see a dispute there. I know that there was a Galarian Moltres was unable to fire off its Ancient Power versus the Shadow Kanto Marowak. The Shadow Marowak did have 2 Rock Slides ready to go. The Ancient Power is not going to knock out there, so I don't think it would have had any impact on the battle. But just to your point, Stephanie, I'm not so certain why STUDMUFFINS brought in that that Dunsparce, because there was just so many elements that really were at a disadvantage at that point. Number 1, you get debuffed. Number 2, you get aligned versus the Shadow Kanto Marowak, which farms all the way down and gets 100 energy for your next Pokemon. And Elite didn't even have to use the Azumarill, I don't think. But even if you somehow get through that Ariados and that Shadow Kanto Marowak, that Azumarill is going to be a formidable opponent.
Yeah, it really is just tough for Dunsparce coming in. It's attack debuffed 1 stage from the lunge, and then your Elite's able to switch in such a hard counter of the Kanto Marowak. It just kind of puts STUDMUFFINS in a position where he couldn't recover. Yeah, no, realistically, the back line for Elite was going to be pretty polarizing, specifically that Shadow Kanto Marowak. If you get that lined up, shields down versus that for Alligator, that is going to be a really tough spot. But if you get it aligned versus that Dunsparce anyway, that may still be Elite's game. But bringing in that Dunsparce forced that alignment, let everything go the way of Elite, and I think that STUDMUFFINS may have a different strategy here in Game 2. It looks like our judges are taking a quick look at the last game, so we're going to be hanging out here while that happens. Jim, do you have any other notes from that last match. I think that Dunsparce swap-in was really pivotal.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're going to be looking again at that that one-turn bring in there with the Galarian Moltres, unable to get a Sucker Punch through, unable to get the Ancient Power off. I mean, my gauge here, we'll have to leave it up to the judges, but from what I saw, remembering the match, is that the Shadow Kanto Marowak was outside of range that an Ancient Power would have knocked out. It had 100 energy, meaning 2 Rock Slides ready to go. STUDMUFFINS, I don't think, even with a Sucker Punch, would have been able to throw a Sucker Punch and then the Ancient Power to knock out. So I still think that's Elite's game. To answer your question though, Stephanie, like, I don't like that Dunsparce swap-in. I understand that when you're debuffed, you don't want to hang around in matchups too long, but I think that Galarian Moltres matchup, as long as you're willing to invest a Protect Shield, is good enough versus that Ariados that you just stick around.
Yeah, both of your charge attacks are super effective. You have the Ancient Power, you have the Brave Bird, both of which threaten the Ariados. Ariados not necessarily known for being bulky, it's known for being able to output a lot of damage. I really do like that Ariados pick from Elite. What are some of its targets? What are some of the things it doesn't want to see from STUDMUFFINS?
I mean, Dunsparce is going to be the main thing, right? That's going to be doing super effective fast attack and charge attack pressure. So it was a little curious to see a swap into the main answer into that Ariados. So that was a bit perplexing to me. Now that said, I mean, Ariados has a lot of neutral play across the board. One of its better answers actually is that Galarian Moltres, right? That's what we saw. So I was surprised to see a swap out. You swap out of your good answer to bring in a better answer and end up having none of your answers on that Ariados is what ended up happening. But the Ariados has good play into the Shadow for Alligator, as long as you're up energy. Great play into that Serperior. Despite taking super effective Aerial Ace damage, it's not enough to one-shot. And then, you know, the Annihilate, the Clodsire, relatively neutral matchups, kind of depends on the shielding situation there. We're looking back here, though. As you can see, the Galarian Moltres, a little bit of frustration from STUDMUFFINS, unable to get a Sucker Punch through. I think the question is, would an Ancient Power charge attack priority be enough to knock out in that situation? It's resisted, let's keep in mind. My guess is no, but let's leave it up to the judges.
Yeah, that is not our call to make. Looking back at the day as a whole, we have seen so many titans of the PvP community here today, and we've seen some epic rivalries. We've seen Rise to Occasion versus Dunebug. We've seen Out of Pocket versus Elite. Some trainers who have been able to be consistent season after season after season. What does it take for a trainer to be consistent over time in Pokemon Go?
Yeah, you have to have a quick response to new metas, right? Things are constantly changing. And real quickly, taking a look at this replay, as you can see, Rock Slide did get launched off there, but I mean, we don't have to look at it over and over again because we saw there was no fast attack that came through. The charge attacks did not pop up. There was opportunities there for STUDMUFFINS to make a play that he was unable to do. Again, to answer your question, though, a quick response to new Pokemon in the meta, to moveset updates, being innovative with your team building, maybe being one step ahead, having a mastery over your counts, over your typings, knowing your matchup specifically in each shielding scenario as well. Okay, do I win this matchup in the 0s, the 1s, the 2s? How do I want to play it? The trainers that have that technical mastery, that quick adaptations to new moves, and I think creativity in their team building are the trainers that we consistently see here on the podium positioning.
Right, Out of Pocket, I would say, is one trainer, or Out of Pocket, Rise, all of these trainers, they've been around since the very beginning of the Championship Series with Pokemon Go, and they've been able to stay at the top. They've been able to maintain podium positions and stay in the conversation.
Yeah, and I think that the thing with Pokemon Go is that you really can never just be content or feel like that, okay, I've learned everything there is to learn, because there's always evolving metas, there's new Pokemon that are being introduced, movesets that are getting tweaked, so you always have to be preparing. Even if a Pokemon is not great right now, all it takes is one moveset update for that Pokemon to be something that is completely off meta, no possibility that you bring to being a meta monster.
Ariados is an example. Shadow Kanto Marowak is an example. Medicham used to be everywhere. Think about all the metas gone by. The metas are constantly adapting, and it takes a really skilled trainer to be able to continuously adapt and change with the tides.
Yeah, absolutely. Specifically for that Ariados, it was a buff to Poison Sting, which is one of the best fast attacks in the game for sure. You see it used by Shadow Drapion, you see it used by Ariados, you see it used by Clodsire. Even with high energy charge attacks like Earthquake, you can still pace to them relatively quick. I think it was the Trailblaze buff that actually put Ariados on the map, knowing that it then has a coverage move that it can hit versus things like Shadow for Alligator, and really all the waters in the meta in general.
There have been so many updates. Is there an update What do you think was the most impactful update, like, recently within the past few seasons?
Past few seasons, I mean, it has to have been at Worlds, right? When we saw that huge announcement. I think it was Caleb going through all the announcements. You could hear the crowd cheering, the body slam nerf, the rock slide nerf, the counter nerf, the buffs to Astonish and Mud Slap and Poison Sting. I mean, those, despite some of the changes that we've seen throughout the season, that was really what shaped and defined the season as it stands today. Again, taking another look at this replay here as this Galarian Moltres enters, unable to get the Sucker Punch through. So unfortunate there for STUDMUFFINS. We're taking a look at what the impact of that really was. Did that mean that, okay, the Ancient Power that's not able to be launched, would that maybe have knocked out maybe a Sucker Punch and then a Charge Attack priority Ancient Power on the second Rock Slide? Maybe that would have prevented a shield being used from STUDMUFFINS. I mean, in that situation, given what we saw, as a reminder, 2 Rock Slides launched from Elite, from his Shadow Kanto Marowak, that drew both Protect Shields, and then a quick swap into the Area Dose to launch the Lunge to knock out 3 consecutive charge attacks without any real play for STUDMUFFINS to do anything about it.
And it looks like we are seeing the trainers come to a decision. I see the trainers going to their phone, so that means we should have a judge ruling for you in just mere moments. It looks like Elite is up 1-0.
Yeah, I mean, from my lens here, we'll have to get the official ruling, but from my lens, I think that the Ancient Power was not going to knock out, even with perhaps a Sucker Punch, would have left it out of the range. Either way, yeah, so much energy for Elite there. And again, it all just came down to that Dunsparce swap in, which was a bit perplexing to us, bringing in a harder answer than you already have to that Area Dose and setting up that Shadow Kanto Marowak dominating matchup into the Dunsparce. It's already dominating, but then with that attack debuff from the Lunge, you're just able to farm all the way down, and it puts you so far behind as STUDMUFFINS.
Yep, so no rematch is the final ruling. So we will be going into the second game of this series. Remember, this is the losers finals. This is a best of 5. So now the trainers, they've had a moment to cool off. They need to turn the heat right back up and jump into game number 2.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk more about that Shadow Kanto Marowak in general for Elite. We've been seeing him bringing it a lot. A lot of trainers have maybe one Mud Slap resist. Actually, we see 2 Mud Slap resists on the side of STUDMUFFINS. He has the Galarian Moltres, which he's bringing all the time, but don't forget that Superior as well. That is a pretty good shutdown answer to that Shadow Kanto Marowak, because you actually hang on versus 2 Rock Slides. So even in situations where your opponent has 2 Rock Slides ready to go, you can actually hang on with both. All right, well, let's reset. We're moving back into game number 2. Currently, Elite ahead 1-0. This is going to be the Battle of the Waters, Shadow for Alligator into the Azumarill.
Yeah, and Shadow for Alligator has a lot of play into this matchup, even though every single charge attack it is going to be throwing is resisted by this Blue Bunny. It can withstand quite a few, but those Shadow Claws are where it's at. It's able to consistently chip away at the health of the Azumarill over time. Also, the Shadow for Alligator just paces so incredibly quickly. However, these neutral play roughs are going to be drawing STUDMUFFINS shields.
Okay, a quick swap now in actually to the Shadow Drapion. Elite's going to be forced to use a Protect Shield, does not want to take that full Hydro Cannon. STUDMUFFINS has an answer here. He has the Dunsparce ready to go. It's a little bit challenging when you're behind Energy. There's already 2 Poison Stings now for Elite. Behind Energy, Elite should be able to get to 2 crunches before STUDMUFFINS is able to get to 2 Drill Runs. Here comes the first crunch. This does about 50% of the remaining HP from STUDMUFFINS, and with an attack debuff, may even put in an Aqua Tail range.
And the Dunsparce is going to continue using Rollout. Uses a Crunch. This is not an Aqua Tail, so no shield from the side of STUDMUFFINS. Is this Crunch going to knock out? Not quite, but you get a defense drop. This Dunsparce is dangerously low and has a lot of energy.
The Dunsparce has 2 charge attacks ready to go. Elite recognizes that, doesn't want to shield 1. The Drill Run does knock out. You can now bring in your Azumarill to absorb all of this energy, and Elite, this time, the one unable to get a bubble through. That's going to leave this Dunsparce on the field and give STUDMUFFINS an opportunity to swap out if he wants. I do expect him to act. Oh, actually, a quick swap from both of these trainers here. Ariados now is going to be met with the Shadow for Alligator. Ariados will win. Does not win the charge attack priority. This will force the shield. Elite is going to have to use his final Protect Shield here so he does not get knocked out by the Hydro Cannon. 2
incredibly attack-weighted Pokemon, and the Ariados is locked into this Lunge and will have an opportunity to throw it here. This is going to debuff the Shadow for Feraligatr. Either move would knock out Trailblaze and Lunge, so you might as well debuff, make these Shadow Claws less effective.
Yeah, as the lead here, you don't want to throw your charged attack. You're trying to bank that after this debuff, you're going to be hanging on versus this Hydro Cannon. I don't know if it is going to be able to. Yes, it does. So you get one additional Poison Sting, and you don't take any additional damage. A smart heads-up play by Elite. Let's keep an eye on switch clocks, though. I'm pretty positive that if you bring in that Galarian Moltres, you're simply going to be able to farm down. Elite needs to get out here. Yes, he brings in his own Azumarill. It's going to be a race to a charge attack. STUDMUFFINS does still have a catch answer. He just needs to get to this Brave Bird to take out the Azumarill, and that's going to be exactly what happens here. The Azumarill did not... Let's remember, though, was one bubble behind. Was not able to get that bubble in the versus that Dunsparce there. So I'm curious to see if we're going to see another dispute here after this game, knowing that maybe that one bubble could have made the difference.
It might have, but in the meantime, what we did see was that Galarian Moltres outpacing and getting to that Brave Bird to knock the Azumarill out.
Yeah, it seems like at this point that there is no sort of review, I think. So as it stands right now, 1-1 here in this best-of-5 series. So we're not going to have a decision after this next battle. It will be 2-1 in either direction here. We're going to have to get 3 wins in order to win that best-of-5. Galarian Moltres looked very, very strong there. It was able to put a lot of pressure into that Ariados at the end of the matchup, and all it needed to do was just take out a low HP Azumarill. Azumarill is not what it wants to see because you're not putting out any fast attack pressure with your resisted Sucker Punches, but if you're able to get shields down and put that Azumarill south of maybe 45% HP, that devastating, hard-hitting Brave Bird will certainly be enough.
Yeah, Galarian Moltres also needs Protect Shields in order to survive that matchup. A Play Rough or even just an Ice Beam threatens deeply a Galarian Moltres. So we're going to see here that race to the finish. But now our trainers are already on the battlefield with their next match. We have Shadow Feraligatr versus Shadow Drapion, 2 of the top Pokemon in this meta game.
All right, the positioning of this Galarian Moltres, yet again, will likely be key to the outcome of this game. If it gets lined up versus that Shadow Kanto Marowak, that's great for STUDMUFFINS. If it gets lined up versus the Azumarill, that's going to be really tough. In the meantime, though, we actually have a quick swap out by STUDMUFFINS yet again into the Dunsparce. Elite's going to be able to bring in his Shadow Kanto Marowak here. There's no debuff this time, so 2 Drill Runs will be very close to knocking out, but Elite is still in the driver's seat here despite having used a Protect Shield already.
Yeah, the Shadow Kanto Marowak looks really good because there are so many different ways to gain an advantage here in Pokemon Go. And Elite, even though he's down the Protect Shield advantage, he is up by so much energy, and he has the benefit of being able to outpace to so many different charge attacks.
All right, well, we had a charge attack priority event there, so the winner of that is going to be the Shadow Kanto Marowak. But look at the HP here. Some Dunsparces are able to hang on through 4 more Mud Slaps. I think that actually that you're going to be able to hang on here. So Elite, oh no, he farms all the way down, comes out with 2 Bone Clubs ready to go. Let's see what happens here. Will we see the Galarian Moltres make an appearance, or will it be the Shadow Feraligatr yet again? Shadow Feraligatr, I don't believe has any energy, but may be able to Shadow Claw down. Okay, here is the first charge attack launched. Will this Shadow Claw knock out, or will Elite be able to launch that second Bone Club as well? Oh, he lets it go!
He lets it go, and the Shadow Kanto Marowak hangs on with 1 HP to throw another Bone Club against the Feraligatr. STUDMUFFINS shields this one up. Now we are back at shield parity 1-1. Elite able to bring in the Drapion, but a quick bring in of the Galarian Moltres to absorb the Aqua Tail.
All right, well, STUDMUFFINS is locked in now with the Galarian Moltres, and there is an answer waiting. Elite has the Azumarill ready to go. I think that he's going to farm up a Crunch, maybe even more energy than that. He could even threaten a Protect Shield here with this Aqua Tail. This will threaten to do the majority of the HP still remaining on this Galarian Moltres. If Elite really wants here, he can actually just hang around in this matchup. These Poison Stings will start threatening to get this this Galarian Moltres low. In fact, STUDMUFFINS really has to use a Protect Shield at this point. I think this Azumarill is probably going to be able to sweep this matchup now that Protect Shields are out of the way.
Azumarill is not the Pokemon we typically think as a Pokemon that can sweep the back line. When I think of that, I think of the Marowak, I think of the Feraligatr. However, the Azumarill looking good. We see the Brave Bird defense down. It's just the Shadow Feraligatr versus the World, and the World happens to be a full health Azumarill that Elite doesn't even need to show.
Look, we see the obvious win cons with the Azumarill there, but Elite with a little bit of a flex there, saying, hey, I don't need to use the 3rd Pokemon again. You know, I did that in Game 1. I'm going to do it again in Game 3 here. He takes a 2-1 series advantage, 1 game away from going to the Grand Finals to face off versus Rise to Occasion. Yet another Dunsparce safe swap, yet another punish by Elite, bringing in that Shadow Kanto Marowak, a full farm down, coming out with 2 charge attacks, getting both charge attacks off. It's almost a repeat of that game 1, but this time the Shadow Feraligatr being the victim of that energy instead of the Galarian Moltres.
From where I am sitting, STUDMUFFINS has got to stop safe swapping that Dunsparce because Shadow Kanto Marowak has been brought by Elite 2 out of 3 games. STUDMUFFINS has brought the same 3 Pokemon, the Galarian Moltres, the Dunsparce, and the Shadow Feraligatr. Has only switched up the lead. First game he led the Galarian Moltres, the last 2 led the Shadow Feraligatr, but has really maintained those same 3 Pokemon. A similar strategy, I believe we talk about, Gerald likes to do the same thing. He brings the same Pokemon to every single match in a series. So now it looks like we do have a match under review, so it looks like our trainers and our judges are going to be talking this out.
We're going to see what was missed here, because I don't think, maybe it was during that back-to-back Bone Club throw. As a reminder, 1 Shadow Claw came through from the Feraligatr. Elite threw his Bone Club. That Shadow Claw didn't knock out, and he didn't throw a Bone Club there as well. So we're gonna have to see. Maybe was there an expectation for another Shadow Claw to go through? He didn't throw a Mud Slap, so I don't think that there should have been a second Shadow Claw to knock out. We'll have to keep an eye on it. But that said, I really like the way that that Elite's been able to respond to that Dunsparce. Again, I'm a bit perplexed seeing that Dunsparce being brought in the safe switch position so regularly for STUDMUFFINS. It would have made sense. Maybe if there's a Clodsire in the back that you're trying to bait out that Marowak, that would be a valid strategy. But we haven't seen the Clodsire being brought. It's the Galarian Moltres.
So it looks like our trainers taking some notes, and I think we might be continuing on. I'm kind of looking at the trainers. I'm looking at my screens trying to determine what is going on, but it looks like the trainers are at least preparing for a 4th game.
My guess is this is going to be 2-1 for Elite. I did not see anything there that was going to be deserving of a replay, but again, that's going to be left to the judges, and it looks like they are still talking about it there. So, you know, it's interesting to see, again, that safe swap for the Dunsparce. I'm not sure exactly what the strategy there is. It would make sense if you're trying to draw out that Shadow Kanto Marowak, if you have something else weak in the back to it, but you have something strong in the back to it. It is that Galarian Moltres, and all you're doing is getting that Galarian Moltres locked in versus what would be the Azumarill there. I'm getting confirmation here from broadcast that this is going to be no rematch. You can see on your screen 2-1 versus Elite here. Elite, as a reminder, 1 game away from moving forward to the grand finals to face off versus Rise to Occasion.
I am looking forward. Elite is in a position to go back to the grand finals, get another shot at a championship trophy, or will it be STUDMUFFINS to make a 2-0 sweep? Both trainers have some really interesting Pokemon here. I've been noticing I like Elite's Ariados, but I've been seeing more play out of that Shadow Kanto Marowak on his side of the field, where STUDMUFFINs really continuing on with that Galarian Moltres. Remember, that was Speedy's pick of MVP. He made it the farthest out of all of us with a Pokemon and a trainer in the top 3.
Well, look, I think it's a really great pick, but it is very alignment dependent. If you're getting it lined up versus that Azumarill, or if it's getting really low to the point where it's in Rock Slide range, you're going to have some issues, especially if you're allowing your opponent to get tons of energy on the Shadow Kanto Marowak. All right, well, we're moving on here. This is going to be game number 4 in what's been a very long series. Here we go, STUDMUFFINS with the Shadow Feraligatr into the Shadow Kanto Marowak. In the 2-shield scenario, Elite should be able to just simply Mud Slap down, but STUDMUFFINS should be able to start stripping away some Protect Shields here.
So these trainers have to think about how valuable are these Protect Shields, how valuable is it, how valuable is this energy. So it's really a cost-benefit analysis that you're making very quickly in this matchup and having to decide what Pokemon are in the back. If you're looking at Elite, you might be thinking that STUDMUFFINS has brought that Dunsparce and Galarian Moltres every single time. I kind of have my game plan ready, but STUDMUFFINS flipped the script here.
Well, he has no real answer to the Shadow Kanto Marowak. 2 shields for Feraligatr is not going to be the answer. Do you just swap out now at this point? No, he's just going to get farmed all the way down. Now you have to probably bring in the Annihilate, but it does not want to see any of these Bone Clubs whatsoever. You're going to get to 2 Bone Clubs. 2 is enough to knock out, and you don't want to have your Clodsire on this whatsoever. Things are looking devastating right now for STUDMUFFINS.
Yeah, the Clodsire does have quite a bit of play into the Shadow Drapion, into the Azumarill, but you have to kind of set it up for success with some Protect Shields, with some energy advantage to really help it out there. here.
Yeah, the Clodsire does have good matchups versus Drapion, does have good matchups versus Azumarill. Oh, and a quick swap out now by Elite, brings in the Drapion. Up Energy is going to be able to get to 2 of these Aqua Tails prior to STUDMUFFINS reaching 1 Earthquake. That's going to put the Clodsire dangerously low, maybe even in range that you can either Mud Slap or Bubble down.
Yeah, again, that Clodsire, I love its matchups against the Drapion, against the Azumarill, but it needs a little bit of help. And right now, that Earthquake, it is going to absolutely go boom on the Shadow Drapion, but not until after this Aqua Tail lands.
Yeah, and this was actually a charge attack priority as well. Very, very good play by Elite, recognizing that, hey, I'm not going to allow you to overfarm. I'm going to throw right when you have this available, which I think STUDMUFFINS could have thrown at least 1 more Poison Sting, but doesn't have that much energy ready to go now. So in comes the Shadow Kanto Marowak again. Bone Club is ready to go. Now you have your Shadow Kanto Marowak that just needs to get 1 or 2 Bone Clubs off versus this Annihilate, and a full health Azumarill yet again ready to remove this Annihilate from the field.
Azumarill is showing why it is one of the #1 Pokemon in the meta. STUDMUFFINS conceding the match, putting the phone down, saying there is nothing I can do against the Azumarill on the side of Elite. Elite taking this series 3-1.
And Elite will be moving on to the Grand Finals, where he will face off versus Rise to Occasion. They have not faced each other. This will not be a rematch here. This is going to be a fresh matchup. Keep in mind, Elite will have to reset the bracket if he's going to take the title.